The National Desk, America's News Now.
Developing now, the Northeast underwater again as hundreds of thousands of people are already without power and storms continue hitting that region. Donald Trump out of the courtroom and on the campaign trail. He isn't backing down on the messaging that appears to be keeping him way ahead of his Republican rivals.
So now they ripped off the top, they took the gloves off, and we can say whatever we want.
Criminal charges have been filed in that weekend brawl happening on an Alabama dock. Was it a riot or a situation gone wrong?
I think it's important for us to address this as an isolated incident, one that was avoidable, and one that was brought on by individuals who chose the wrong path of action.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and right now millions of people are at risk for severe storms again tonight. You see it all here. Very large hail, severe wind, and tornadoes possible across parts of the Central Plains. Some damaging wind and hail also possible in some areas in the southeast. Now, flood alerts are still in place for some in northeastern states. And some areas in New England were hit with heavy rainfall today. Just take a look at these images here. Parts of Massachusetts seeing some flash flooding earlier. Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine are expected to see 1 to 3 inches of rain through tonight. Now, this rain is expected to leave the area tomorrow and make way for clear weather. But a tornado also touched down. This was in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts earlier. A storm survey team found it was an EF1 that was on the ground for about 3 minutes. And as you see here, taking down some trees and power lines as well. At least 2 people are dead after storms ripped through the eastern U.S. last night. Hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses are still without power now. You can see some of the damage here in this video. Heavy rain, wind, even some hail and lightning, flooding in some places. All of that coming together to take down trees and damage several buildings there. And thousands of flights also affected by all this. There were many disruptions today. More than 400 flights canceled, 4,500 delayed. That's according to FlightAware. It is, however, better than yesterday when 8,200 flights were delayed and 1,600 canceled. Developing now, Ohioans voting today on what the threshold is for voters to change a state constitutional amendment. Currently, 50+1% is enough to change the Constitution. Today's vote seeks to change that to 60%. While the special election would affect all amendment changes in the state, it takes on added meaning because Ohio will vote in November on whether abortion protections will be cemented into the state's constitution. Today's vote could potentially make it much harder for that amendment to pass. The vote's already gotten a lot of attention. Nearly 700,000 people there in the state of Ohio have already cast an early vote. That's more than double the number who voted early in the midterms. Polls close tonight at 7:30 p.m. We'll be watching it for you right here. Meanwhile, happening today, abortion on the docket in both Utah and Kansas. The Utah State Supreme Court weighing whether or not to uphold a lower court's stay of the state's law banning most abortions. Meantime, in Kansas, the district court heard arguments to block a new restriction of abortion medications, as well as new state guidelines on what doctors must tell their patients about abortion procedures. The Air Force has found unsafe levels of a likely carcinogen at underground launch control centers at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. 2 facilities at the base had PCB levels above EPA thresholds. Now, this is a site associated with the high number of cancer diagnoses. The Air Force has directed cleanup to start there immediately. Montgomery police in Alabama issuing arrest warrants today for 3 men accused of starting a brawl at Montgomery's Riverfront Park yesterday. You saw the video. Richard Roberts, 48 years old, he was charged with 2 counts of third-degree assault. And 23-year-old Alan Todd, a 25-year-old Zachary Shipman, they were each charged with 1 count of third-degree assault, just like the other gentleman. Police Chief Darrell Albert explained why these charges were appropriate.
We've also looked at what it takes to elevate this to a riot, inciting a riot. We've worked with our local district attorney, and it didn't fit the criteria for that.
New details tonight as we get a clearer sense of a key focus of the 2024 Trump campaign. As he did 4 years ago, the former president now plans to focus on what he calls a 2-tiered system of justice and the president's son, Hunter Biden. National correspondent Christine Frizzell brings us up to speed.
Former President Trump out with a new ad, laying out arguments central to his 2024 campaign.
Hey, Joe, How come your Justice Department goes after Trump endlessly, yet they cover for your family?
Trump once again zeroing in on President Biden's son Hunter, his previous substance abuse issues and business deals when Joe Biden was vice president.
How did Hunter's partners get meetings at the White House? Your brother, grandkids, even nieces and nephews got paid from foreign deals.
House Republicans have pushed forth with their own investigation of Hunter Biden, uncovering hundreds of bank statements laying out just how much he's made from foreign business dealings.
The process involved a foreign country or foreign national wiring money to a fake company. Then the fake company would then turn around and wire the money to the Biden family members. They did this to hide the source of the revenue.
Now, the revelation of this 2011 letter from then Vice President Biden to his son's business partner, Devon Archer. Biden apologizing for not getting a chance to talk to him and thanking him for coming, despite insisting he's never talked to Hunter about his business.
What we're trying to find is who lied and what are all the truths.
Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy telling our station KBAK an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden could be next.
An impeachment inquiry is not an impeachment. It only empowers Republicans and Democrats in Congress to be able to get the answers they need.
All of this unfolding as former President Trump faces more than 75 criminal charges, with more to come. Meanwhile, Democrats on Capitol Hill accuse their Republican counterparts of being Trump's campaign arm in Congress.
We all know that when Trump says jump, the Republicans in the House say, how high?
All right, so it is becoming clear that Hunter Biden will remain a central focal point for the Trump campaign leading up to 2024. Eugene?
But Christine, this isn't exactly a new strategy here. In fact, we saw Donald Trump talk about Hunter Biden all the time. Does he think it worked?
Yeah, you know, on one hand, Trump lost in 2020, and a lot of voters said they didn't care about Hunter Biden's business dealings 4 years ago. But, you know, since that time, House Republicans have really made it their mission to investigate his business dealings. They've got their hands on a lot of paperwork. And by the way, Hunter Biden has since been, charged in a federal case. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds and whether voters care this time around, especially in light of Trump's own mounting legal troubles that he has himself.
Yeah, it's a different time and lots has changed. Christine Frizzell in Washington tonight. Thank you. Former President Donald Trump was campaigning in New Hampshire today, and he's not shying away from criticizing the indictments issued against him, once again calling it election interference by President Joe Biden and a ruse by the administration to keep him off the campaign trail.
I'm sorry, I won't be able to go to Iowa today. I won't be able to go to New Hampshire today because I'm sitting in a courtroom on bull because his attorney general charged me with something.
Well, meantime, former Vice President Mike Pence has qualified for the Republican National Committee's first debate August 23rd. He joins former President Donald Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and 4 others as possible participants, although Trump has indicated he won't attend that debate. Meantime, Ron DeSantis has made another change to his campaign team. Campaign manager Jennifer Peck has been replaced by DeSantis' gubernatorial chief of staff, James Utmeyer. Peck will stay on the campaign team as chief strategist, though. DeSantis trails Donald Trump by double digits in most primary polls. A new plan will bolster cybersecurity in schools, which are frequent targets of hackers and cyber criminals. The Biden administration announcing today that several companies have agreed to give free and low-cost resources to school districts across the country, including $20 million from Amazon Web Services for a cyber grant program and free security reviews as well.
All of us here today are acutely aware of how demanding it is to work in education. The challenges that students, teachers, parents, administrators, school board members, front office staff, tech support, and outside vendors even confront every day would have been unfathomable even 5 years ago. Cybersecurity threats are merely the latest such challenge.
Now, last school year, at least 8 K-12 school districts were impacted by major cyber attacks. Analysts expect frequency of attacks will get worse. The federal grand jury investigating Donald Trump and his associates for the alleged interference in the 2020 election results met again today, suggesting that maybe their work is not done just yet. This is the first time they've met since indicting Trump last week. 6 co-conspirators were listed in the indictment released last week, while no other charges have been released just yet. One of those 6 co-conspirators is former Donald Trump attorney John Eastman. That's according to his lawyer. Eastman is petitioning the state of California to postpone disbarment proceedings against him, as he believes criminal charges could be levied against him soon. He's under parallel investigations for making false statements about election fraud. Almost 100 people in the United States and Australia have been arrested on child sex abuse claims as part of an ongoing operation. Now, this comes after 2 FBI agents were killed while investigating a suspected global pedophile ring in early of 2021. Australian police shared these images you see here of a suspect's devices that they said 19 men were charged with sharing child abuse material online, bringing the total arrest to 98. At least 13 children were rescued. To the Supreme Court now, which is allowing government regulations of so-called ghost guns to continue for now, that is. Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett joining the 3 liberal justices and stopping a lower court's freeze of a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, or ATF, a 2022 definition change of gun-making kits as firearms. The regulation remains under legal challenge in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Scientists say they've improved upon an energy breakthrough. Researchers at California-based Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory created a fusion reaction more efficient than a test in December. The reaction created more energy than was put into it. Nuclear fusion is what powers our sun. The ability to harness that power could lead to commercial clean energy on Earth in the years to come. The office of Tampa Mayor Jane Castor announcing today that she and her family found more than 70 pounds of cocaine while fishing off the coast of Florida in July. It was down in the Florida Keys. Castor turned in 25 bricks worth more than $1 million to Miami Border Patrol agents and local police. Jane Castor's no stranger to drug evidence. She worked with the Tampa Police Force for 31 years and in 2009 became the first female police chief in the department's history. Coming up here on the National Desk, new numbers show alarming trends in retirement savings and credit card debt among Americans. We'll break that down for you coming up. Then a new rule could boost pay for more than 1 million construction workers here in the U.S. How it could also impact everyone across the country. And vaping among kids skyrocketing in some of our schools. What experts say is the most dangerous part of that trend. When we return in 90 seconds. New details out of Haiti now. The U.S. Embassy there is closed today due to nearby gunfire. The embassy also warned U.S. nationals in Port-au-Prince to avoid that surrounding area. This coming a day after thousands marched through Haiti's capital demanding more protection against gang violence. More than 11,000 L.A. city workers remain on strike today, and it's all over labor practices they say are unfair. The union said the city hasn't bargained in good faith and has restricted employee rights. Los Angeles International Airport asked travelers to allow extra time for travel during the strike. The union plans to continue negotiating with the city next week. To the border crisis now, the number of migrants crossing into the U.S. illegally trending upwards again following a June lull after the end of Title 42 in the spring. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the latest with the fight over who gets additional federal dollars to deal with the crisis.
A record-setting summer heat doing little to deter those determined to make it to the United States.
These guys are out here for 2 days, 2 nights.
In the Tucson, Arizona sector alone, illegal migrant crossings up 134% compared to last month, according to unpublished Border Patrol data obtained by CBS News.
This fiscal year, we're on track for over 3 million nationwide encounters.
The uptick coming after migration numbers slowed in June. The administration crediting that slowdown to their new asylum policies.
Our border enforcement plan works.
But former acting commissioner for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, equating the favorable figures to a sleight of hand.
It's a big shell game. They're not being honest with the American people.
A crisis mounting in New York as border states continue busing migrants to the sanctuary city.
More than 95,000 asylum seekers have arrived here since last spring.
Residents unhappy the city turned a Brooklyn rec center into a migrant shelter.
Eventually, this was going to come to a neighborhood near you.
Mayor Eric Adams also planning to house migrants in tents on the youth soccer fields of Randall's Island.
We need to control the border. We need to call a state of emergency, and we need to properly fund this national crisis.
The federal government sending $104 million in federal emergency funds to help New York. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema saying this week she's livid the additional funds are not going to border states.
The fact that a yeoman's amount of this money went to New York City, in my opinion, is wrong. What we're experiencing here in Arizona is matched only by what folks are experiencing in southern Texas. The leader of the United States Senate is from New York. That is how a bunch of money went to New York.
Biden making a stop in Arizona Tuesday, where he's having a particularly hard time in the polls, despite winning the state in 2020. The president visiting the northern part of the state to talk about climate change rather than visiting the border. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
New tonight, the drug kingpin known as Otoniel was sentenced to 45 years in prison today here in the U.S. 51-year-old Dairo Antonio Usuga pleaded guilty in January to drug trafficking charges after leading the smuggling of tons of cocaine headed for the U.S. He was Colombia's most wanted kingpin before his 2021 arrest. To your money now, the number of Americans withdrawing money from their retirement savings accounts is going up fast. According to data released by Bank of America today, 36% more people made hardship withdrawals in the second quarter this year than last year. Bank of America's latest participant pulse report also showed an increase in the number of people who drew money from workplace plans as well. In a separate report released today, take a look here, the New York Fed saying American household credit card debt surpassed $1 trillion for the very first time ever. Overall, American household debt is now more than $17.6 trillion. New tonight, President Biden announcing a new national monument near the Grand Canyon today while visiting Arizona. The ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument will conserve nearly 1 million acres of landscape surrounding Grand Canyon National Park. The lands are sacred to tribal nations and indigenous peoples of the American Southwest. President Biden signed the proclamation at Red Butte, a sacred site of the Havasupai.
There's no national treasure, none that is grander than the Grand Canyon. Help right the wrongs of the past and conserve this land of ancestral footprints for all future generations.
This is the fifth national monument created by President Biden. The administration today also announced $44 million to strengthen climate resilience across the national park system. What a difference a year makes. Last year on August 16th, Senator Joe Manchin worked with President Biden to pass the politically controversial Inflation Reduction Act. Well, today he tells Politico that Biden is, quote, manipulating the law to push a radical climate agenda. Manchin threatened to repeal the law in April, claiming the White House was not honoring a pledge to make cheap fossil fuels widely available through that law. The West Virginia senator is up for re-election this year. Vice President Kamala Harris in Philadelphia now promoting a new labor rule. It's an update to the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931 and the definition of prevailing wage. The changes could give higher wages to construction workers on federal projects. The Biden administration says it'll impact more than 1 million construction workers, giving them thousands of extra dollars each year.
We strongly believe every worker deserves fair wages for their work. So I'm here today to announce that we are updating this law and giving workers across the nation a raise.
Critics argue the new requirements will make construction projects more expensive for taxpayers. Chrysler recalling almost 45,000 vehicles. It's all because airbags might not deploy correctly. The recall impacts 2022 to 2023 Jeep Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer models. Chrysler will inspect the vehicles and make the necessary replacements for free. Wegovy, the weight loss drug, can reduce the risk of heart attacks, stroke, or heart disease-related deaths in people with cardiovascular disease by 20%, according to a clinical study released by the drug's maker, Novartis. While the benefits are reportedly larger than medical experts expected, the findings have not been peer-reviewed, nor have they been published in any medical journals yet. The nation's blood supply is at a critical time right now. Specialists say we need more blood donors, but we also need continued diversity. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how this saves more lives.
Hey there, hello to you. The season traditionally hard on our nation's blood supply, but this year a special request that donors of diverse backgrounds are really needed and all types are welcome. You know your blood type?
A negative.
Whether it's A negative, the type Mike has, or O positive, as Tracy provides.
I feel more that there's no good reason for me not to.
Different blood types, such as A, B, or O, are needed to meet community blood needs.
I donate because it helps save lives. Many people need blood and transfusions.
But so are different ethnic backgrounds.
We know that more diverse blood results in better outcomes for certain disease populations.
Dr. Caroline Elquist is a specialist in blood compatibility. She says when it comes to matching blood for everything from certain types of anemia to organ transplants,
what's interesting is that your heritage, your background, results in blood cells that are slightly different.
So because we are diverse in our heritage, we need donors that are Asian, African American, Hispanic, and white, just to name a few. And here's why.
There's different kinds of proteins on the surface of those cells that in certain populations we have to match.
And matching those with blood types.
I have a rare blood type, and I can give it to anyone.
And different types of donor diversity simply means we have a blood supply ready and waiting to save more lives.
It's a great thing to do. I think it's the next best way of giving back to the community.
It's very emotional. I love doing it.
So how do you feel like inside in your soul when you help save lives like this?
You feel good about it, that you're helping someone.
Now, to donate, in most cases, you simply need to be 17 years old or 16 with a parent's permission, in good health, and weigh at least 110 pounds. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
And coming up here on the National Desk, some school districts seeing an alarming rise in vaping among kids, why experts say it's so dangerous. We'll be right back. The National Desk team of reporters taking the pulse of America now. After serving for more than 8 years in the Air Force, Jesse Steele is now looking forward to serving in a different capacity. This time his focus is on children's education.
I know when I look back, some of my biggest influences were my teachers, especially in your middle school years. Those are very formative. So just to be able to have an impact in their future and really, help mold who they become.
Steele will be teaching history and civics to middle schoolers at Riverbend Academy in Tequesta, Florida. He's participating in the Heroes in the Classroom bonus program. It's a program that offers a one-time sign-on bonus to retired first responders and veterans like Jesse who become full-time teachers. It's all part of a new law passed in Florida to help combat the nationwide teacher shortage. And in El Paso, Texas, school districts are seeing an alarming rise in vaping among kids ages 10 to 15. Some say the marketing for vapes is targeted towards young people. The danger lies in THC vaping. A county official saying there's been about 400% more cases this year than last. A big problem is how easy it is to access and conceal the vapes. They often smell like fruit, and it can be impossible to tell if there's nicotine or THC in them. And in California, officials in Arcata are warning people to stay alert after someone posed as a fire inspector to gain entry into an apartment. They say the person was able to get inside, then pretended to test the smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, then left. The fire department says the logo is on all personnel clothing and vehicles. They're telling residents to call them to verify if anyone comes to their front door. Coming up here on the National Desk, thousands of people have changed their legal name for free food. The franchise behind the promotion when we come back in 90 seconds. Nearly 10,000 people have legally changed their name to Subway. It's all to get some free sandwiches for life as part of a promotion, according to the chain. Subway will now select one winner later this month. That person will also be reimbursed for the name change process. It comes as Subway is also updating its menu. In a decision handed down just a few moments ago, rapper Tory Lanez was just sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting and hurting hip-hop star Megan Thee Stallion. Lanez has been in jail since December for several convictions related to this case. Prosecutors wanted a 13-year sentence. Defense attorneys wanted the judge to release Lanez and put him on probation and have him enter a residential substance abuse program instead. That's into it for us right now. Join me tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. Check your local listings for the exact time. I'm Eugene Ramirez. I'll see you later.